What's up, ballers? It's the Z-Man coming at you live and direct from Pittsburgh. I'm in Pittsburgh doing this podcast intro. I have a little one-nighter doing a guest spot on the Pittsburgh Improv show with Mark Norman tomorrow, but I wanted to get this podcast out because it's a big one. It's a fat one. I've been a little inconsistent with the podcast release. My bad. Going through a lot of stuff going on, good and bad, but today is a good day. Today's podcast, comedian Greg Warren from Comedy Central, Last Comic Standing, The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson. That's not on anymore, but he's done it all. He's a regular on Bob and Tom. That's where I first heard of him. And he does the Pittsburgh WDVE morning show with Randy and Bill over there. He's on every Wednesday. He's got a great background in comedy. Talks about getting involved with comedy in Missouri when he was a rustler. Great conversation. And then we flip gears, a little bit more local for my Cleveland audience. I sit down with a guy I've wanted to talk to for a while, and I just made it happen. Chris McNeil. You might know him as Reflog on Twitter. He's a big Twitter guy, McNeil. Reflog_18. He's the guy who organized the 0-16 Browns Perfect Season Parade. He was the guy behind it. This was his brainchild. We talk about that experience. We talk about the Browns now. And we also have a connection because we both did big-time Cleveland things. A lot of you might know I was one of the guys who helped burn LeBron James' jersey when he went to South Beach in 2010. No regrets. And he organized this big parade. So there was a lot of similar backlash and a lot of focus put on Cleveland because of our stunts, if you will. But it's a great conversation. He's in the back half. Greg's up front. But before we get to that, let me hit up the Patreon, everybody. I know we only have a few on there, but you guys are loyal, and it helps me with the podcast. I put all the money back into the podcast. I'm trying to build it bigger. I have a bunch of ideas, but very little time. I want to add a video component. Cameras bought, still setting that up. And if you hit up the Patreon, $3 a month, that's it, $3. You get bonus content, updates, things before the public. In fact, if you go to my Patreon right now, you can see the cover of my brand new album. And if you're in the $10 tier, you can get my album before anyone. I will Dropbox it out to you with the cover art, but you got to be in the $10 tier. And you can have it, you can listen to it, you can do whatever you want with it. But you'll get it before my release on December 25th. I am releasing this thing on Christmas for everybody. The album's going to be $6. I'm going to be releasing 2 albums. The one's going to be next year. I decided to split them in half. So this 40-minute album is going to be coming out December 25th. But I encourage all of you to... I just lost my train of thought. I just completely blanked. Wow, I'm going to leave that in there. Normally I would redo it, but that's what happens. Sometimes you just have a brain fart. So I just farted in my brain. What I was trying to say is I need you to go and pick up the album. It's going to be pre-order. If you could just buy it, and then it goes live on the 25th. It helps with the rankings. I'm trying to do a number 1 iTunes album. So the more pre-orders you do, the better your chances to get that number 1 slot. I guess there's a little trick to it. I don't know, but it'd be pretty cool to have. I could brag about it for a week, then nobody will care after that. So get the pre-order album. Comes live the 25th. If you need it before then, sign up on the Patreon /sit-down Zumock. And for $10, you can get the album right now. I'll send it to you personally. Okay, this is what's going on. The week of December 10th through the 15th. The 14th and 15th, I will be in Washington, D.C. at the D.C. Comedy Loft. First time there. I'm excited to perform in Washington, D.C. I am 1.2 miles from the White House. That's where this venue is. So I am a mile from the White House. So I'll go over to the White House. I will talk to the president. I will sit him down and we will discuss things that need to be done in this country. I'm going to solve all the world problems while I'm in D.C. And that night I will perform 2 sold-out comedy shows. I don't know if they're sold out. But come out. If you know anyone in the D.C. area, Virginia, if you listen to this, please come. Would love to meet you. And then I'm in New York, the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th. I will be doing a lot of press. I'm going to be on Nikki Glazer's show, You Up. I will be on Burning Bridges with Kevin Brennan. I will be on Anthony Cumia's show. And I am actually opening up for Godfrey at the Village Underground Comedy Cellar on the 25th, New York. Come out to that, because I will be doing a half hour at the Comedy Cellar in front of one of the best in the business, Godfrey. Hit that up. Love to see you. And, this is cool. The 19th, I'll be in Philly at Helium. I'm doing a little one-nighter over there. So if you live in Philly, come see me on the 19th. That's a Wednesday. Okay, let's get this thing going. Before we get this thing going, let me drop this real quick. I am going to be in Los Angeles for 5 months, guaranteed, in January. I'm going to be writing on a project I'm not allowed to announce. A friend of mine hooked me up with a cool writing project that's lucrative, and I'm excited for it. And I can't announce it right now because you'll understand when I do announce it. But it's one of those once-in-a-lifetime opportunities I can't turn down. So I'm not going to be on the road as much as I used to because of this. So my last dates in the Cleveland area will be the 27th, 28th, and 29th at Hilarities, Pickwick and Frolic. By the way, the 27th is my birthday, so bring a gift. I'm going to be opening for my good friend Nate Bargatze. He texted me, asked if I was open, if I was willing to do it, and I had not been at the club in a long time. It was one of the first clubs I've ever started at. I was pretty much the house MC there in 2007. I was there all the time, and it's going to be good to go out with a bang with a killer club. Nick Costas and the crew, they're nothing but class acts. We had some rough patches there, but I'm excited to return with one of the best comics working, Nate Bargatze, the 27th, 28th, and 29th. Okay, let's get this thing going. Ladies and gentlemen, these are great conversations. If you're not familiar with Reflog on Twitter, follow him. And if you're not familiar with comedian Greg Warren, pick up his album, phenomenal comedian. I think you'll get to know him in this episode, and I think you'll enjoy him. That's a wrap.
Sit down, Zumock.
Sit down, Zumock.
Hit me!
Sit down, Zumock.
I'm here with the pride of St. Louis, right?
I don't know, man. I don't know how proud they are of me or not.
What are the great comics in St. Louis? Who are all the comics? You, Nikki. That's it.
No, man. I mean, well, how far do you want to go back?
Stop at Sean O'Brien.
Okay, yeah, O'Brien.
That's
it.
the back.
That's really the. No, yeah, that is the back, way back. No, I mean, Red Fox, Dick Gregory, Kathleen Madigan.
Holy! I didn't know Dick Gregory was from St. Louis.
Yeah.
Manigan, okay.
Madigan, Cedric the Entertainer.
Holy shit!
Lavelle Crawford, Guy and Joe Torre.
Wow.
Yeah. There's some other guys. This guy named Rodney Wingfield, I think he was like one of. He might have been one of Pryor's writers or something like that. I got to see him one time go up. He was a pretty funny dude.
Yeah.
And then, Tommy Johnigan.
Yeah. I just saw him.
We got some really funny comedy.
Yeah.
There,
You know who was a kid I liked when I was last at the St. Louis Funny Bone, and I think he's on your podcast. What's your podcast again?
Well, it's defunct.
Oh.
Yeah.
You were going around St. Louis places.
Yeah, it was called Trip to the Lou, and it was we would go visit somewhere in St. Louis and then talk about it, and there's like 9 listeners, so.
Is it still out there?
Oh, yeah, they're out there. I think it's really good, man. I mean,
yeah.
The content's pretty good, but we never reached sort of critical mass, and it was for a podcast, all of us had stuff going on, then it's a hard one to do because you got to go take a trip one day, and then you got to go into the studio one day.
At one point, you were in a helicopter?
Yeah, we did a helicopter stuff. We did a lot of cool stuff, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a lot of, all this stuff that like the field trips that I went to when I was a kid and didn't pay attention.
Yeah.
We did that stuff. Yeah.
Well, the original thing was there's a kid that was on there a lot. His name was Stephen Hightower, who I think.
Oh, Stefan. Yeah,
Stefan.
Yeah, he's funny, man. Yeah,
Dude,
he's funny.
I go. That kid. If he goes to LA right now and puts it, that kid could have a half hour. I mean, there's like he has a voice, a look.
Yeah, he's a funny dude, man.
That was a guy like I wish I had some heat so I could discover someone.
Yeah,
because I was like I could discover this kid, but
Yeah,
I have
he's
nothing.
Good, man. Yeah, Stefan's funny, man.
Yeah, follow him on social media. When I tweet this out, I'll tag him in it so you guys. He's a great St. Louis comic, but I don't know. You know, he's a young guy, so I don't know.
Oh, yeah, he's real young, man.
Yeah, so
he's gonna be good.
Yeah, have you ever seen a comic that you're like that guy's gonna be something and they became something?
I don't know. I don't know if I could call it that easy, man. I mean, there's definitely, and I don't really care. I mean, I don't necessarily care that much whether I think that I know what they have to make it.
Right.
Like, but I've definitely seen guys. I mean, like, man, this guy's funny.
Right.
Like, this guy has original ideas, and he knows how to present them. Like, to me, that's the only thing that matters. So I definitely saw that in Tommy Johnigan.
Yeah.
You know, like real early, and he wound up being sort of one of those genius guys that breaks all the rules and can go faster than everybody. But it's like I tell a lot of young comics, man, that are struggling. I'm like, man, you know, Johnigan, he's as fast as I've ever seen as somebody that got that good that quick.
Right.
Like, but there was a good amount of time when he wasn't that good, you know, like the first nobody like he was good, but when he was like, you know, a couple years in, I'm telling you know, like, man, I should be doing better. I'm like, yeah, well, this guy's the best I've ever seen go the fast, and at the beginning he wasn't that good, you know, and now he's awesome, you know. So yeah, there's plenty of people that Stefan's a guy that I definitely can see has talent.
Yeah, there's something there that
he's got a really cool voice, you know, and he's got talent. There's a lot of them though, man.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because we're here at Hilarities in Cleveland doing the podcast. I always want to get Greg on. I have like a list of guys. You're one of the guys.
Oh, thanks.
Because I find you an interesting guy. I mean, there's comedians you've followed from afar or seen from afar. Like I knew who you were before you even knew who I was, just from Last Comic Standing and Comedy Central and Bob and Tom.
Yeah, I think I met you here a couple times, man.
Yeah,
back in the day when you had a radio show here.
I used to host here a lot. And now they're doing a thing in the room. It's in the middle of the afternoon. They got Jerry the King Lawler.
Yeah.
And Jim Ross, the old wrestling commentator. Now, you have an all-American wrestling background. Did you ever consider doing professional wrestling?
I did not. No.
That would be awesome because I think you'd be awesome on the mic, like Roddy Piper, just the promos. You would be amazing.
Yeah, I never really thought. You know, it's not really a world that you think about too much when you're
when you're really wrestling.
Yeah. It's not, and I don't think I have the. I don't think I have the look or the bravado for it. I think
you would have perfect joke structure though on the mic.
I would, man, and I think I would go. I think in order to stand out, I would go sort of. The opposite direction of like most of those guys, they're always very, very confident in themselves, and very proud of themselves, you know, like, and they're always sure they're gonna win, and they're sort of, honestly, Chad, they toot their own horn quite a bit.
Sure.
Whereas I think I would be like, Greg, we're here with Greg the Animal. How you gonna? I'd be like, I mean, I've looked at the numbers and. I don't think I really have a chance against this guy. Like he's beaten this guy who beat this guy who also beat me very badly. So as if you just look at it, I don't think I'm as good as he is. You know.
I mean, granted, these are predetermined, but at the same time,
yes. But I mean, and especially like, given the script that we all know, like that I'm a relatively unknown, and this guy, I don't think I stand a chance.
You would have been the perfect. I don't know if you ever watch wrestling, but the Saturday morning wrestling where they would fight the nobodies.
Yeah.
You would have been the perfect that guy.
Yeah. I think so. That's sort of how I see myself in comedy too, actually. Really.
You're the Saturday morning nobody.
Yeah, I'm the nobody. Yeah. Who? Yeah. I didn't plan on it going that way. It's just sort of fell into that. Yeah.
So how did you transition from wrestling to comedy? I'm sure you've talked about this on shows, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, I had sort of a weird start. Like I was in college. And there was this. I was in Columbia, Missouri, at University of Missouri, and I wrestled on the team there. And there was these guys that were bartenders at the comedy club there.
Rest in peace, Deja Vu.
Yeah. And they.
I made love to a lady there once.
Yeah, man, that was good for that. Yeah, it was definitely good for that. Yeah, there's a lot of pretty girls, and they kind of convinced me to enter some contest, and I was in the contest. But like I did stand up, and I was focused on wrestling, and I did it like, a handful of times in college, but not. And I mean, and if I look back, I'd be like, that is not stand up. That's, I don't know what that was.
Yeah,
but, it's garbage. But and then when I got out of school, I wasn't. I think I actually moved. I moved to Chicago, and I was like, I'm going to become a comedian. And then it was around sort of this weird time where my smoking hot girlfriend broke up with me, and I did not know what I was doing. And I just sort of everything. I was in Chicago for like 3 weeks. I'm like, I need more structure in my life, or things are going to go. I was used to sort of having that wrestling structure, school, and I was like, so I moved back to St. Louis, and I'm like, I need to get a job, So I wound up getting a job at Procter & Gamble.
With Josh Sneed?
Yeah, I mean, he came along a little later than I did, actually. I was in sales, and they sent me to Houston, Texas, and I had a sales territory down there selling Pringles and Duncan Hines and Crisco and Jif peanut butter. And
who books that?
Yeah, I can get you. I can take a look at that. I mean, you got to put yourself up.
So you were just a normal dude at this point.
I had a job, but and then I started. I mean, Houston was kind of a cool scene down there, and I wound up doing some open mics, and I would I'd do it for a while, and I'd be like, nah, man,
Was it the old Laugh Stop?
The Laugh Stop.
I never got to go there, but I heard it's awesome.
Neat place, man. And I was like, nah, I'm gonna just. I belong I'm not a comic, and then, or I'd have like a bad set and I'd be like, I shouldn't do this, man. And then
it's kind of like you're a wrestling guy.
Yeah, kind of. And then after I don't know this, I moved down there in 91. Around 95, I sort of was like doing it all the time, doing like open mics all the time. And then I just towards around 95, 96, they let me open a couple of the clubs down there. And then I got transferred to Ohio, to Cincinnati, with Procter & Gamble, and that's where I may have quit a couple times during that run too, but from 96 to 2001, I was working for Procter & Gamble in Cincinnati, and I was like pretty much the house MC. 1 week at Go Bananas, 1 week at Joker's in Dayton.
Oh, I remember that club.
And 1 week at the Columbus Funny Bone. So I was working a lot.
Yeah.
And then in 2001, I quit my day job, and I was just so tired. It was, 5 or 6 solid years of being the first guy, being the MC, and I was getting pretty good at it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I think I'm better than a lot of these guys that are the second guy, and I'm tired of being the first guy. So I literally was like, I have no plan. I was making a lot of money at the time. It was like financially, it was the dumbest thing. I mean, a lot of money, and I was like, but I just can't do this anymore, and I want to be the second guy. I hate
that was your goal, the second guy.
I hate going up first.
You didn't want to be the third. You just
no,
wanted to be the second?
man, I didn't think I could. I didn't really. I mean, I guess on some level I thought I was all right, but I was like, I sucked for a long time, so I think I still. So I was like, all right, I'll just.
So did you go put your 2 weeks of I want to be the second guy?
Pretty much, man. I went into Procter, my boss, who just resigned as the CEO of New Balance. He's a pretty heavy duty guy, and I go, hey Rob, man, I'm gonna quit. And he's like, is it to do comedy? I'm like, yeah. He goes, man, I got look, see all those binders up there? I was like, yeah. He goes, those are all binders to tell me as a boss how to talk guys out of quitting Procter & Gamble to go work for Boston Scientific or all these companies that would raid P&G, headhunters. And he goes, there's nothing up there about stand-up, man. He goes, good luck, buddy. So
So ballpark, just you don't have to tell me the exact figure. What kind of money we talking?
North of $100,000 with all the trimmings.
Wow.
Like stock options and this was in 2001. stock options and retirement and all, the best health you can imagine.
Oh.
Yeah, a lot.
So you left that to make
go feature
$600 a week as the second guy.
Yeah, as the second guy. I left to be the second guy.
Wow.
Yeah. And it really was. I was like, man, I don't think this is. Just give me 2 years where I can go try this. And it was fun. And then I don't know, man.
Did you have a lot of money in the bank at the time?
I had a good amount.
Good enough to swim around?
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, I didn't rough it, I did not. I see guys, a lot of young guys that are out there, and they're like, I never had to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, if I got to some place and they had the terrible condo, I'd be like, I'm just going to get a hotel.
Oh, wow.
So I don't pretend to be like.
Well, Snead kind of had the same story, right?
Yeah, similar. I mean, he didn't work as long at P&G.
Sure.
But yeah, he had a similar situation. Yeah, so
when did you become the third guy? How did that happen? Were you disappointed?
No, I was, it's like anything else. Once you get a little success, I'm like, well, yeah, I should be this guy,
What was your first big TV credit? What was the one that got you going?
I mean, the first thing that happened, I think, was, so I quit in 2001, and I think in 2002 I went to Montreal, just for laughs, young new faces.
You submitted a tape and they liked it, or?
You know what? I did a showcase down in Houston, and it's funny because the guy down there, he's a pretty cool guy, but he kind of had his boys,
right.
that he wanted to be. He managed, and he wanted them to go. And I was like, man, I think I did better than everybody else in that showcase. And I remember talking to him. He was like, I don't know, man. They're kind of interested in this and this and this. And I was like, okay.
Scumbag.
And I was working with, not really, but I was working with this girl in Indianapolis, Becky Pedigo, I think her name was. Really funny comic. And we were staying in a condo, and she was like, did you do good? I'm like, yeah. She goes, just call the guy. I go, the guy? She's like, call the Montreal guy.
Who was the guy at the time?
Bruce Hills.
Oh, yeah.
So, I was dumb, and I just called him up and left a message like, hey, Bruce, this is Greg Warren. I did a showcase for you guys, and I was just seeing what you thought, and I got a message back. He's like, yeah, man, we thought you were great. I mean, it's a tricky year. We're not sure who we can or can't take, but you're definitely in the. I was like, man, I might. And then I did a callback. They had me do a set in L.A., and I just had a great set that night,
that's great.
And so I got to go, and I think I got premium blend out of that, and a manager and an agent, and
back when that meant something, and it was something.
Yeah, I mean, it's
even premium blend was something.
Yeah, for me it was everything.
Yeah,
it's weird what something is now that I look
people
back.
were watching TV then. I remember watching premium blend.
Yeah, it was fun, man. I mean, I look back and I'm like, I don't know. None of it is this huge thing that made it. I never hit it. There's some guys they have this one thing they did and that changed everything. I never had that. There's sort of some cool stuff I've got to do. But I probably easily doing stuff on the Bob and Tom show was the thing where you can headline all the time and you can have people come see you. So
that's when I first was aware of you, Bob and Tom, because I remember as a young guy, I was like, I want to get on Bob and Tom.
Yeah, man, they were so cool to me, and
you were one of the staple guys. It was
I just had a bit that hit on there, and they put it on their CD, and then they put me on their tour, and then that's when I was consistently the third guy. You have those couple years where you're sort of in the middle, where they're yeah, you could be the third guy here, but you're going to be the second guy on Friday and Saturday, or you're going to,
Right.
But after pretty quick, around 2005 or something, they pretty much, and I had a good manager at the time too. He kind of drew the line. It was like, all right, man, this is what you're going to do, and this is how much you're going to work for, and it was kind of.
That's
cool.
pretty cool, man. That's a lesson to all you young comics listening. Make the call.
Yeah.
Just call the guy.
Yeah, call the guy. Yeah. I don't know if that's good advice or not.
Last time I was on Bob and Tom was a while back, and I was talking to Bob. No, I was talking to Tom.
Yeah.
Bob was gone.
Yeah.
And he was talking about those albums back in the day.
Oh, they used to be huge.
They were huge.
And
And
I think he gave them all to charity, too. I think he gave all the money to charity for those things.
yeah, I mean, they were on the Billboard charts, all that. And then they said they released the last one digitally, and nothing.
Yeah.
It was gone.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad how that was such a juggernaut, like back in the day. Even with TV and radio, like you were in the thick of it when like TV mattered and radio really mattered.
Yeah. Radio was that was, I mean, when radio was at its height, and I just sort of, for whatever reason, it worked out where I felt like I could do a certain kind of morning radio. And there's still, like, Pittsburgh has this morning radio show that.
Oh yeah, WDVE.
Yeah, they were really good to me.
Bill
They still
Crawford.
are. Yeah, Bill and Randy.
Yeah.
And like this guy Jim Kren was there before.
Yeah.
And those guys, man, they're still like my buddies. And there's a few markets where it's just like radio hit.
It still
But-
hits in a couple markets. You got
Yeah.
Omaha and Todd and Tyler.
Yeah, Todd and Tyler, probably the first station that I did with any regularity. Man.
Right.
But yeah, it's pretty cool, man. I mean, now it doesn't, when you go on, it doesn't, just back in the day, you could sell out a weekend
know.
because you just had a great rate. Now it's not like that, but it's still, now it's like, man, I honestly like going into to Bob and Tom because I think those guys are really funny and they make me laugh and they're
Yeah.
my friends. And sure, it helps, man. It definitely helps. But or going in to see Randy and Bill and Val and Mike, or going in Pittsburgh, or even here, John Lanigan was always really cool.
Lanigan, legend.
He was really cool to me, and I just did sort of the second iteration of that show a couple days ago.
With
and it
Mark
was,
Nolan.
Yeah, they were so cool, man.
Yeah.
And Chip and Jimmy Malone and Tracy. Or like to go see
My
Todd
former
Tyler.
coworkers.
Yeah, I'm going in to see Todd and Tyler in Omaha in a couple weeks, man. I honestly, I'm just going to hang out with those guys. It's going to be great.
I love them, man. They were
Yeah.
they were the first people to kind of like take a liking to me.
Oh, I could see where you would do really well on their show, man.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
And they really they pump me up all the time, and actually because of them, Colleen headlined me a couple off nights because of Todd and Tyler. So no, I'm a big fan of those dudes.
They're good dudes, man.
Yeah, great
there's,
guys.
Radio, I love. And then there's my hometown of St. Louis. There's a station called Y98 that used to be this guy Phillips and Courtney Landrum, and now Guy left and Courtney's on there, and a comic, Tim Convey's on there.
Tim's awesome. He's a great comic.
Yeah, so I mean, I love doing it. I love doing radio when it's good.
Yeah.
I know we've been in some markets where you're like, you woke me up at 5 to go for this?
I know.
For this idiot that is asking me dumb questions and then talking over me, or
I
when
know
they start getting into like, man, so what's your worst gig, or what's tell me, it's like, man, they start asking you biographical questions like you're De Niro or something. Like nobody cares at all about they want to hear me say something funny, you know.
Somebody's in the car going, "Who gives a shit?"
Yeah. This guy, who cares about this guy, man? Yeah.
No, because when I started in 2005, and I had a similar story. I moved to LA for a girl, and 3 weeks she broke up with me, and I was like, "What the hell am I gonna do?"
Yeah, man.
So I would just sit at the Hollywood Improv in the back, and just get drunk and watch everybody go on stage.
Right.
And Rita, who's the GM there,
Yeah, man.
she's originally from Cleveland.
Oh,
Found out I was
she
from Cleveland, and she felt bad for me, so she would feed me.
Oh, that's cool.
So I was
man.
I was just like her little stray cat, and
Yeah.
then one day I was like, I'm just gonna do stand up.
Yeah.
And I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it, and then I became obsessive about it. And it was
Yeah.
right around the time when you were doing the Bob and Tom. Then
Yeah, I was living out there. I was out there at Melrose quite a bit back then.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
I probably saw you go up.
Yeah. Like I think I was there from like 2002 to 2006 or something.
Yeah,
2007. Yeah.
2005. Yeah, I was right there. I remember every fucking day going to the Ha Ha Cafe, putting down $5, getting my 5 minutes of stage time.
I loved the Ha. I lived right around the corner, man, and
in the Valley.
I lived right around the corner from that place. And when I first moved to LA, that was where I got the most stage time. And yeah, they're so funny. It's Terry and Jack.
Jack with the ponytail. I don't know if you
Yeah,
still
Jack's
have it.
Armenian. Terry's Mexican, and I think they're divorced now. But when I was there, they were married, and Terry was so funny, man. Okay, great. I got I'd be like, Terry, who's on the show tonight? 3 black, 1 white, 4 Latino. No names, just
That sounds like a casting director in 2018.
Yeah, my favorite. I got to be the white guy there, and my favorite thing was to hear Terry say like the some of the black comics names. You know, be like, "Hey Terry, who's up next? Fly. Who? Fly, Gray is Fly. Okay, Fly is the next comic." But I wound up doing BET pretty early in my career.
Oh, that's a good market.
And it sort of like was because of the Ha-Ha, because I was like used to doing, I had a small chunk of material that really worked with black audiences.
Yeah.
And I kind of developed it at the Ha-Ha.
Okay.
So I wound up on this like BET. Like,
you could have been the next Rich Voss.
Yeah. Big fan of Voss's.
My favorite, and I got to give credit to comedian Ryan Dalton. He came up with this. My favorite fake black comic name, Mo Jokes.
Mo Jokes is good, man. I love that guy, man.
He's been on BET.
Yeah.
He was in Barbershop 4.
Def Comedy Jam.
He's done it all.
Yeah.
He's
Mo Jokes is good, man.
Friends with Joe Torre.
Yeah, that's awesome.
No, so when I was around that time, when you're young, you're eager, you love everything, you look at. So I would study comedy and comedians, and I knew you were in the Bob and Tom camp, and then there was the Howard Stern camp and the Opie and Anthony camp. So I was like watching all you guys from afar.
Oh yeah.
But it was weird how radio and comedians played together like back then. It was like a necessary situation for both sides.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's. I'm really grateful to radio guys.
Sure.
Those guys, I wouldn't. I don't know. I know without Bob and Tom, I don't know how I would have like made a career out of it. To be honest with you.
Yeah, but it's interesting where we're going right now. Like as like for the young comics out there, that might like radio's still there, and effective in some markets, but like,
it's not the thing that's gonna. It doesn't.
Yeah, what's that thing? Is it podcasting? How do you?
Well, I think that's the interesting thing is like you don't know what it is, man, and so you should just do sort of what you're passionate about and what you really like doing, because you can't be like, well, I'm going to do this because it's going to work. Nah, man, do what you. Yeah. Because it's all over the board what sells tickets or what or what makes you a success. So you might as well just do what you like doing. I think. There's got to be some business sense or marketability about it, but if you told me some of the ways that that I make money. Yeah. Sirius radio is like a huge thing, man.
Yeah, sound exchange checks, they're nice.
That wasn't even a thing back in the day,
Yeah, I had Kreischer on the podcast, and he does every podcast. He goes, you never know which one's going to hit. You don't know that little guy in Des Moines, Iowa. You're like, I'll do it. Next thing you know, he might be the next Joe Rogan. You never know.
Right. That's smart, man. Yeah. That's the only reason I'm doing this thing, man.
I had you on because I'm trying to ruin your career. That's what I'm doing.
Well, there's a point of diminishing returns where, like, why would you want to ruin? It's ruined. You can't beat it down much further.
So after, so you did the Bob and Tom thing, and then that led to. When did you do Last Comic Standing?
I did it a couple of times, man. I did it.
What was the one that you got known for?
I don't think. I never got to the top 10. I always lost the round before the top 10.
Yeah, and to Mo Jokes.
Yeah, Mo Jokes. Yeah, I remember the first time I did it. Well, the first time I got to like the semifinals, it was the year that Reap won. I think
John Reap.
Amy was on there.
Schumer.
Yeah, and Lavelle. I had to follow Lavelle on the semifinals. Yeah, that was not fun.
You're
man.
Eliminated.
Yeah, that was tough, man.
Yeah.
And then
were you on the one with Nikki?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, but I did do the last one they did. I think I was like, I had done it for years, and I was like, I think I could win this. I really did. And I got to the semifinals again, and I made sort of a really bonehead move that, I just kind of.
Did you try to sell merch on stage?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, which no, I just kind of let them. It's part of the game, but I kind of let them talk me into do material, which was not the material that should have been that I should have done. I was doing a TV set, and I went up last, of the semifinals. I got 30 people, and I should have done Let's Kill the Room set.
Yeah,
I had done a couple of late night sets right before that, so I knew how to do a late night set. But I was doing like, how's this going to look to the TV audience? And I should have done it. Go in there and do whatever it takes to blow up the room.
Right.
And I'm a road comic, like I know how to do that. And man, of all the stuff that I've failed at, and there are several things. That one really stuck with me for a while, man. I was
That one
really,
hurt.
And now I look back, I'm like, shut up. What? You should have got over it in 3 days, and
Yeah.
it took me a long time. And yeah, I really felt like a moron for that. But even that, like, it's weird because it's like both of those things. I have these negative, like I lost. I don't like losing. I
Right.
lost. I didn't do as well as I could have, and they kind of edit the set, and so it's not like this. I'm a little OCD, so it's like it's
Right.
not this perfect. It's not this perfect experience.
Sure.
But still, there's all these people because it's on at 8:00 on NBC.
Yeah, network TV.
They, nobody saw the half-hour special, but they saw that.
Yeah.
And I did have on that one, on both those, I had one really good appearance. Where
Right.
it was like a really good TV set. So, nothing's perfect, man.
Right.
For my career,
You've had a good career.
it's fine, but it's like nothing's perfect. I mean,
Did you ever get to do Letterman?
no, I didn't, man. And that was one. I'm bummed. That bummed me out because I did do a showcase for him, and I remember I'm rarely arrogant or
Yeah.
cocky, but I walked out of that showcase being like, all the managers were like, dude, you got Letterman, man. That's awesome. And then it just didn't happen.
Oh, that
Like,
hurts.
it just didn't materialize.
Eddie Brill.
No, it wasn't Ed. It was I think it was after Eddie.
Oh.
I mean, but a lot of times I got turned down for stuff, and I used to get mad. And I'm looking, I'm like, well, you should have. It was garbage what you were sending in there.
Right.
Yeah, but I got to do some pretty cool stuff, man. And you get you got to believe that your best stuff is ahead of you.
Yeah.
I'm the most excited.
You still get excited generating new material?
That's the only thing that
Yeah.
I got a new hour in me right now, and I'm not sure what we're gonna do with it, and it still needs a little work, but
Sure.
I got Jack Vaughn is a guy that's been he's works over at Sirius Radio now in their comedy.
Oh, I know
division.
Jack. Yeah.
great guy, man.
He's on Laugh USA.
He's on everything. He's the guy.
Yeah.
He runs everything. But he did my first album with Comedy Central Records, and I kind of hit on a sort of a little bit of a theme on this next album that
He plays your stuff a lot.
Yeah, he was
in
like
bulk.
he was like he's the one that kind of convinced me to go like clean. Like,
Yeah, because that's a clean channel.
yeah, and I was always like clean, but with a little bit of profanity. You know,
Yeah.
like I wasn't Regan that clean, but he was like, man, you're close enough where you need to go that direction. Like you need to just when you put out an album, it needs to be G-rated,
Right.
And it's served me well. And in
Because you do these clean shows throughout the country, too, for like all families, right?
sometime, well, I experimented with this year. I don't know. I mean, there's some markets where the shows are great, but sometimes people come, sometimes they don't.
I gotcha.
So that was kind of fun. I mean, I look back, I'm like,
Well, it is a challenge to write clean. Like I'm not filthy by any means, but I like to be a little edgy and take some chances. But there is a challenge there to write clean, and I like that challenge. It's fun.
yeah. I just sort of wound up there, and I mean,
If you could be funny clean, man, that's the best.
it is. I don't know if it's the best. It's just a thing. It's because like
Yeah.
I'm not the guy. Like there's a lot of comics that I really like that are not at all clean. I
Oh,
think they're
absolutely,
hilarious,
yeah.
and like, but Jack was like, you need to be more defined about who you are, and he's like, you're this close. So it was good advice, man. And so this next album, I want to make it that way. And there's a couple themes that I'm like, oh, this is could be turned into something cool. So
That's great.
yeah, man. I'm with like the first year or two of working on a new bit of material, like a new album or whatever. The first year is hard because it's like you have no traction. You don't even know what.
Right.
And then you start putting a few poles in the ground where like, okay, this works, this bit works. Let's build off of that. And then so the last 50% is a lot more fun, I think.
Yeah.
Because you have something.
The build off of, right.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this: with all your careers, like everything you've done, like what was the one thing that this was the best? Like in my mind, like this is why I got into this. This was my Mount Rushmore. This is
Man, I don't know.
You don't have that moment?
I think it's this podcast, Chad. I think it is, man. I mean,
Kill yourself.
yeah. I think it's this.
Your
podcast.
career's done now.
I don't know, man. I mean, I got to do some pretty fun stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's one thing.
There's not that one thing.
Yeah, I mean, when I did Seth Meyers, I felt like was living in New York for like 4 years, and
Yeah.
I felt like I was on my game, and it was around Christmas time, and I was living in New York, and it's down at Rock Center with the tree. That was kind of cool, man.
Going into the NBC and that whole.
Man.
I would love to have that experience.
Now I look back at the set and I'm like, it's garbage, man. The half-hour special was a lot of fun because my whole family
was that Comedy Central?
Yeah.
Okay,
that was pretty cool, man.
My problem with Comedy Central is there's so much great content that people can't access.
Yeah, they don't play it a lot.
No, and you can't access online. You got to go through their dumb. With all due respect, I doubt I'm going to get anything for them. That you got to navigate through all this nonsense, and there's so much gold in there.
Yeah, there's some good stuff, man. I mean, I
like when Mark Norman was promoting his hour special that Amy Schumer produced, and he's just like, yeah, it's on Comedy Central. No one's going to watch it. He kept saying that everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I'm just wait till I can buy it and sell it.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I did, that and some stuff, but then I did my last CD. It's like nobody was, it was out there, so you can't really put it on a special because it's out there. But there was no video of it, and I was like, man. And that Dry Bar, comedy. Those guys asked me to do a thing there, and it's like a clean comedy. And then so I just did it, and I didn't think much. This is like I didn't do any new material. I did stuff that had been recorded. And I mean, that thing, they get a ton of.
Dude,
they put it out a month ago, and like there's all kinds of hits on that. So
I just saw Josh Sneed today. Got 1 million hits on a video.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell is this Dry
I have
Bar?
like 4 videos with more than 1 million hits. So it's and that's cool because I never really cared for much of the video that was on. Like any of this YouTube stuff, I didn't put it up there.
Right.
And the stuff, most of the TV stuff that I did, they wouldn't let you put it up there. So
that's what's cool about the internet, because this could find somebody.
Yeah, or if I've made a few new fans, which is cool. But I guess what it is, it's also like if somebody Googles Greg Warren, they're gonna probably hit on one of those Dry Bar videos because they have so many hits.
Yeah, and
it's stuff that I'm not ashamed of. Like it's decent material. It's shot well. I mean, trust me, I can find flaws with it, but
I know. Like I'm releasing an album next week.
Oh wow, man!
It's terrible.
No, it's not.
No, I listened to it back. It's not good.
Listen to it like 3 or 4 times. On the 4th time, you start being like, no, this is pretty good. The initial shock, it's always worse than you think.
You think?
Every time I've looked at something, video, acting, anything, the first time you're just like, this is garbage.
Yeah.
And then by like the 3rd or 4th time, you're like, no, there's something really good about this, man.
You know what it is?
Listen to it a few times.
I'm sure you're familiar with comedian Mike Vecchione.
He's a buddy of mine, man. Really
Dude,
buddy of mine.
His album, and I've talked about this on every. It's one of the best comedy albums of the year.
It's giant,
phenomenal.
It's got about 2 hours of stuff on there.
Yeah,
right?
And it's just boom, 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 machine gun. And
great.
I listened to it and I compare it to mine. I'm like, I'm not even in the same ballpark.
Well, you probably you're different stuff. Mike is a joke machine, man.
Oh,
friggin' machine.
Yeah, and I
love that guy, man.
Oh, he's phenomenal too. Yeah, you guys are both wrestling backgrounds.
Yeah, man. We bonded over that, man.
You guys could have been a tag team.
Yeah. He's a little younger.
Greg Warren, where can people find you? Website, Twitter, Instagram, Defunct Podcast.
Yeah, GregWarrenComedy.com, and then all the other stuff, man, you can find it.
Yeah, you're one of the good guys in comedy and a great act. So I'm really glad that you took the time out to do this because
I enjoyed it, man. Yeah,
because you go around the markets and you see people and you never get to sit down. And I was like, I see Greg's coming home. I'm home right now.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna make this happen. I reached out and you.
Oh, of course, man. Yeah, man. Cleveland's a pretty cool place, man. It really is.
It's like I got my roots here. I'm around the country, and I'm getting like fans from other areas. But it's like it all started here for me. Like this is my kind of like even my podcast listeners are still from when I was on Cleveland radio.
Right.
So. They still stuck by me, and I try not to abandon that. But
but
I want to branch out and like have them experience more things and different people. And
right.
I have an idea. Like I want to go around the Cleveland sites.
Yeah.
Like little field trips, like a podcast.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, man.
No,
I wouldn't. You're welcome to do it, man, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Greg Warren, everybody, check him out. That's a wrap.
Hope you're enjoying the podcast, everyone. I want to give the shout out of the week. Every week I'm going to start giving out some shout outs to people that write in, people that contact me, people that follow me, people that support me. And this one's going out to Sarah Giesman. Sarah, thanks for the continued support. Always sending me encouraging notes and posts. You are the shout out of the week on the Sit Down Zumock podcast. Also, I'm going to be doing comedy showcase. Comics the showcase of the week. That's what I'm calling it. I don't know what I'm calling it. Comics to keep an eye on. And this one's going out to a comedian out of the Akron area, Akron, Ohio area, a regular at the Funny Stop in Cuyahoga Falls, Chris Harvey. Chris Harvey is a young guy who's really getting after it. I just recently worked with him. He's committed to the game. He busts his ass out there. Chris Harvey's a funny dude. Follow him on social media if you can. Also, I want to give a shout out to the app that I told you about before, Laughable. Laughable is a free app you can download, go to the store, and you can listen to every podcast, every comic you love, even comics that aren't comedians. You can follow them to other podcasts. You just press follow. So go to Laughable, download it, and you can follow me, and you can see all the podcasts I've ever been on. It's that simple. It's free. I get nothing in return except I like the product, and that's where I listen to my podcast. You know, the iTunes store, the iTunes podcast app, it's kind of janky. I'm not a big fan of it. Sometimes it goes out. But Laughable's reliable, and I think they got an Android app coming soon. If you have an Android, dude, what's up? Why are you still rocking an Android? It's almost like a flip phone, dog. Okay, with that being said, we're about to kick off the second half of this podcast with the Cleveland local. Even if you're not from Cleveland, this guy made some headlines. He's responsible for the 0-16 Browns parade last year. He's always on Twitter. Everyone's following him in the Cleveland area. Reflog_18. McNeil. Chris McNeil joins me on the podcast. We talk Cleveland sports. We talk about that parade. And it's a great conversation. I hope you enjoy it. If you can do me a favor, go to the iTunes store and leave 5-star review. Do that for me if you like this podcast. That's a free thing to do. Do that, and the new album's coming soon. Go to the Patreon, sign up, $3 a month. It's that simple. $3, cheaper than a Bud Light at happy hour. Okay, enjoy my conversation with Ryan McNeil.
Let's go, Jared.
I am joined on the phone right now via hotline, Chris McNeil. I had to do a lot of research on you, Chris.
A whole lot of research, huh? That's kind of scary.
I had to do a lot of Google searching, and
Right.
because you're this Twitter guy that just always pops up on my feed. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, there you go. That's what a lot of people, I think, say.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of people out there thinking the same thing.
But they're great tweets. They're always really funny tweets. So I'm like, okay. Then I did a little bit more Googling, and I had no idea you were the guy behind the 0-16 parade.
Yeah, that's kind of my claim to fame, as it grew into something that was a monster last year after we went 0-16. Yeah. And, you know, you mentioned Twitter. It came out of nowhere because it really came out of a single tweet back 2 years ago. Actually, it was the year before we went 0-16, and grew into that monstrosity that now people kind of know me for.
Now, how did this all come together? I mean, obviously you have somewhat of a sports background. From what I can understand, you were a golfer.
Yeah, my own athletic background probably didn't help much in what I do now, but I've always been a huge Cleveland fan. You know, my family and we lived in Akron for a while there in Bath, and my parents had season tickets to the Browns, and I'd make it to many Indians games. And back in those days with the Cavs, they were in Richfield, which is just right up the road from us. So I grew up just a huge fan of everything Cleveland. And, you know, with Twitter back several years ago, you know, as I had kids and really developed a family life, I couldn't exactly go to the bars anymore and send out my witty retorts to my friends or something as we're getting around to drinks. So I started taking those to Twitter, and it kind of blossomed from there. And then as far as the parade goes, you know, we had the Cavs, who genuinely won, obviously, in 2016 after the Golden State Warriors blew a 3-1 lead. The Cavs won it all, had a championship, and had a huge parade in Cleveland, which was unbelievable. Over 1 million people flooded the streets there in the summer. And then we had to deal with this Cleveland Browns team that had won nothing. You know, at that time, I think we were probably 6 games into the season. Still didn't have a win after, you know, after thinking this Hugh Jackson guy's coming in. We think he's going to be good. And I just threw it out there after a particularly bad loss. I said, this team deserves a parade, tongue in cheek, kind of the opposite of what we just had with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And from there, it just took off. I had somebody DM me immediately. He said, hey, listen, in the city of Cleveland, for $25 and this paperwork, you can actually hold a parade. And so I thought, what the hell, for $25, I'll go ahead and fill it out. So I did, sent it in, and sure enough, I got a call from the city. And then we know what happened with the Browns. They just continued to lose. So that particular season, this was 2 years ago, we actually ended up winning on Christmas Eve. We beat the Chargers. Then in San Diego, they played and lost to us, so they actually had to change their city. But won on Christmas Eve. It was a miracle for us, and I donated all the money I'd raised for the parade to our local food bank. So it ended up being a really good thing. And then, of course, coming into the following season, Hugh Jackson, we retained him, and we go 0-16. And we end up actually having the parade last year, or the beginning of this year was in January of this year. So also donated a bunch to the food bank. It was really cathartic, I think, for the people who attended the thing. But, yeah, we had the ironic parade actually happen in Cleveland.
It's at reflog_18 on Twitter if you don't follow him already. But for me as a comic that travels the country, I had to hear about this damn parade everywhere I went because of you. Like every city I went to, like Buffalo, New York, Denver, South Dakota, like everyone would brought up the parade, and it was all your idea.
Yeah, and so I had people who either really liked the idea and got it and understood the sarcasm, or you had the other side, and the people who absolutely hated it and just hated my guts. And I would get all the vitriol on all social media about it because they thought that I was somehow celebrating losing and that we were all losers. And, I had several people who were out of town like yourself who would say, hey, listen, nationally, some people get it, some people don't. I hate defending this thing, or they say I love it. So it really created some interesting dynamics on social media. That's part of the reason I think it blew up so as much as it did.
Well, Chris, I got to tell you this. A comedian by the name of Bill Burr, I'm pretty sure you heard of him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I remember seeing him at the Hollywood Improv. And I know Bill, I'm not very well, but well enough that he knows who I am. And he's just like, he goes, what are you guys doing? Doing a 0-16 parade? Like, what's your problem in Cleveland? Why are you celebrating that?
Yeah, and I get that, and I get it, and I'm not going to knock those people who didn't get it or it wasn't their bag. I completely understand it. There was that threat that this thing was going to really come off poorly and make us look bad. And ultimately, I think it came off really good. I think most people kind of got the joke that what we were going for. All the national publications kind of gave us a pat on the back after they were ripping us for a little while. And we ended up walking away in 2 years because I planned it for 2 years, basically. Walked away giving about $75,000 to the local food bank, the Cleveland Food Bank, in addition to everything that we collected down there. So it ended up being really a win-win on a season where we obviously went 0-16. And hell, now we're good, right? We're good. So we turned this thing around. I'm not going to say the parade did it, but I'm going to say we are good now. We were not good last year.
I call it the ultimate reset. We resetted everything.
And you know what? This is way more fun than we have had in Cleveland in a long time with Baker Mayfield. I mean, just lighten it up. We just had the game this weekend where he looked good again after kind of a lull against the Texans. I mean, this guy's for real. I think even national folks are starting to come around to this guy. I've been just so impressed week in, week out. What he's been able to do in the city, as a rookie. We forget that he's a rookie in his rookie campaign right now, and he is lighting it up like we haven't seen, in at least 20 years, probably since Bernie Kosar back in the mid-'80s, early 90s. So it's a good time to be a Browns fan. If anybody's going to get on the bandwagon, now is the time to do it because we're on the way up in Cleveland, and it's nice to say.
One of my dear friends, Anthony Lima, he's the co-host of the Ken Carman Show with Anthony Lima on 92.3. He's been on the podcast. We watched the game together on Sunday, and we were just sitting there enjoying ourselves, and we're like, you know what? All we wanted this season was to have competitive games, not necessarily wins, competitive games. So right now, it's overshadowed all my expectations.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I think I came into this season thinking I was optimistic, saying we were going to have 6 wins, and right now we sit at 5.5 wins, 5 in the hook with that tie against the Steelers, and we've got 3 games left. So I feel good about that because this season was not, like you said, going to be about wins and losses. It was going to be about progress and whether we had something in Baker Mayfield. Because quite frankly, when we drafted him, I wasn't sold on the guy. You know, I'm an Ohio State fan, so he planted the flag in our stadium. I still held that against him, as a lot of people did. But, man, when you see him on the field, he turned those people into believers pretty quickly.
He's got that swagger. He's got that charisma that you want in a leader. And you're right, he is a rookie. And from what I can gather from my research, and yes, I did research on you, unfortunately.
Wasted time is what I like to call that.
You're a big Bernie Kosar fan, much like myself.
Absolutely, yeah. Gotta love Bernie. In fact, I got the follow from Bernie on Twitter back about a week ago, and it kind of made my Christmas early. It was a good follow right there.
That's a huge follow.
It is. It is.
My
I
favorite...
usually don't get geeked about things like that, but that one really caught me. That made my day at least.
I got 2 connections. One, Bernie Kosar. He came to one of my shows at the Cleveland Improv, and I was doing stand-up in front of Bernie Kosar. I knew he was there, and I had to call it out. And after the show, he's like, dude, you're hilarious. And I'm like, Bernie, you don't understand. This is like Make-A-Wish Foundation right now. This is unbelievable.
To have Bernie Kosar, you know, that's so great. In your given profession, to go out there and do it in front of your idol like that, it is so awesome. My only experience with Bernie is much less kind of inspiring, but I was actually at a gas station in Nashport, Ohio. At the time, he was dating a lady by the name of Tammy Longaberger, for anybody who still remembers Longaberger baskets.
Oh, yeah.
She was from that family. And he happened to be stopped to get gas with his girls, and I was kind of away from the front counter. He was up there paying. At this time, I didn't know who was behind me or who was in line, but I heard this guy in the background going, yeah, the Gladiators got this game this weekend. I just looked up, and I looked at the guy that was next to me. I said, that's Bernie Kosar right behind me. I guarantee it. And sure enough, I turn around. It's Bernie Kosar. And I'm, like, shaking. I'm like, what do I say to Bernie Kosar? So as he's walking out the door, you know he's trying to hustle out of there, get to his girls. I understand. But I said, hey, Bernie, I was at the Gastineau game. He turns back to me. He goes, best late hit I ever took, and walked out the door. And I was like, that is the coolest moment I'm ever going to get right there. For those of you who don't know what the Gastineau game was, we beat the Jets back in 1986 in the wild card game. I was a 7-year-old, and I was at that game. And that's the reason I love Bernie Kosar. So with that moment, I was able to tell Bernie, you know, everything that I wanted in just those few words. So it's pretty cool to have that kind of an experience with an idol.
Isn't that cool, like, as a fanboy? Because even though I go further and further in my profession, I meet your idols, it's so cool to have those moments because it means so much to you. Because in your life, that was like, that meant so much to you, and then you have this connection, and you get to tell the story.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, at 7 years old, if you would have told me that, hey, that guy who just orchestrated that comeback, you know, down 10 with 4 minutes to go, Bernie Kosar, you're going to meet him in a few years, I've been like, my God, that would have just blown me up right there. Like, you could have killed me after that. That'd be my life, you know. So it was really cool to be able to share that experience with the actual guy who did it.
So here's my weird connection to you in some sort of weird way.
Uh-oh.
In 2000, I think it was 10, I believe, I was one of the original guys who burned LeBron James jersey. That was like my little...
Really?
Yes, me and my 3 friends at the Harry Buffalo in the Lakewood parking lot burned the jersey. The national feed picked it up, pumped it into the decision, but that was our jersey on fire. So I had my Cleveland moment like your parade.
So you are the guy who we have to go out and defend like every single season, it seemed, there for a while, because everybody now believes that every single citizen in the greater Cleveland area, Northeast Ohio, burned their jerseys when LeBron left. And we'd always convince them, hey, you know, there was a very visceral reaction to him leaving. There was a lot of passion about it, but not everybody burned their jersey. It was only a few guys, you know, it made the rounds, but it was only a few guys, but no one nationally believes that. So I completely understand where you're coming from on that one, having that parade that I had where it just kind of burns out of people have their different opinions upon it. I think probably the same way that you've experienced with the burning of the LeBron jersey.
Well, that's what's funny, and I understand where you're coming from, because at the time the national media was like making it like Cleveland's out of control, everything's on fire, everyone's out of control.
Right.
It was 3 idiots in the parking lot of a Hairy Buffalo in Lakewood burning a jersey with some friends around. And Channel 5 News was recording it. They pumped it into the decision. Next thing you know, it's on SportsCenter. I'm talking to Lee Jenkins, who wrote I'm Coming Home article.
Yeah.
It was a crazy, crazy story how it got blew up.
Amazing how much context matters. Like,
Yeah.
when you explain it, it seems so simple. Just me and my buddies were at a Hairy Buffalo. Come on, it was just our reaction in the moment. But, it didn't become that. Nationally, Cleveland was on fire. They were tipping over cars. Lake Erie was the river was going to catch on fire again, all because LeBron had left. And here it was, you and a couple of idiots out at Hairy Buffalo. That's so great.
No, it's funny how things get blown out of perspective and blown out of proportion. But I mean, to this day, like with everything, I mean, you're really well known on Twitter. But do you still get any kind of backlash from that, or is it kind of run its course?
It's mostly run its course. Every once in a while, somebody will have some sort of a slight, but you take all those in stride. I actually welcome it, because it's always fun to come back at people. I think that's kind of the heart of social media. So, but no, I mean, when I put on the parade, I honestly did have like a few death threats and things. People don't really realize that I had Homeland Security was involved in this, because this is a big public event.
Huge.
It came out of a joke, right? It came out of a 140 character tweet that I had sent out, but it actually became a very legitimate thing. I met with the city. I had to have all of my T's crossed and my I's dotted. Had to meet with the security. I had to do a whole lot of things. Had to have parade insurance. So I mean, this was legitimate.
Parade insurance. I didn't even know.
Parade insurance, yeah. Which I knew nothing about. I had to go out your way. I think on the West Coast to go find somebody who would insure my parade, and that's actually a pricey thing to be able to do. I didn't know anything about any of this stuff, but you have to present all that stuff to the city to be able to have a parade, to actually get a permit and for everything to be cool. But yeah, it was a very legitimate thing, and we took all the right precautions to make sure everybody was safe that morning.
So with my Cleveland audience, I want to know some of the prominent people that has blocked you on Twitter, because you have a lot of blocks.
Oh, yeah. Oh, geez. Well, first of all, Dan Gilbert. Now, Dan Gilbert's kind of a funny one. For those who don't know, Dan Gilbert is the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't even remember how he originally blocked me. I'm sure it was probably me ripping on him for, the way he runs his mortgage company. But he blocked me. And, it's something about predatory mortgages and predatory lending. If you bring that up in a tweet to him, he tends to get a little bit defensive. So he blocked me for that.
Good for you, by the way.
I actually said,
good for you.
I said to Dan, and people retweeted, so he eventually would see it. I said, hey, listen, the Cavs have been cursed ever since you've had me blocked. We haven't played well. Well, you unblocked me. We actually won it all, in 2016. And I don't know actually what I said to him after it, but he blocked me again. We haven't won since then.
So
He legitimately had me unblocked for a while, and that's where he won the championship. And they blocked me again. So I'm not trying to curse the Cavs, but Dan Gilbert needs to unblock me again so that we can be good again. But he's one. Beat writers around our area, of course, have all pretty much done that. Mary Kay Cabot was one of the first ones, and Tony Grossi, and a bunch of those guys with 850. They don't have any senses of humor over there.
I love that.
Oh yeah, and of course, and those who don't know, one of the things that got the parade really to blow up was when Tony Rizzo, who's a local honk there on 850.
I know Tony.
ESPN.
Yeah, I've been on the show.
Tony?
I've been on the show.
He's been on your show. Okay, great. Well, Tony does not like me. And in fact, I would encourage anybody who is listening to this right now to go and find Tony's rant. This really blew up the parade the first year we were going to have it. He goes on a rant and the Browns' official post-game show. So let me set this up for you. I'm with my kids in the car, and we're listening. The Browns had just lost again. And we're listening to Tony Rizzo. And somebody tweets at him, and he reads it on air, and he says, "Hey, what's your feeling on the parade?" And Tony Rizzo sits back and he goes, "I am glad that somebody finally asked me this. If you were one of those people who are planning this parade, I will fight you. Come down to BW3 and I will fight you." And he put it out on the airwaves, on the Browns' official airwaves, that he was going to fight me at a BW3 there in suburban Cleveland there that evening. And my kids are like, "Is he going to beat you up?" I'm like, "No, I don't think so." He goes on and says how he's going to mow me down under his tires. Well, eventually, ESPN down there in Florida, and I forget the guy's name now, Levitard and his crew picked up on that. And once they did, they encouraged their listeners to go to my GoFundMe to fund the parade. So in one morning, we must have gained about $8,000 or so just because of Tony Rizzo's rant. So in an odd way, Tony ended up funding that first parade that we were going to have as a result of his rant. But it's worth checking out, if you ever can, the Tony Rizzo rant on the Browns' perfect season parade. It is a gem.
I've heard it, and I got to tell you, I love people who shake up the system. I love people that cause problems. I love anarchy. I love craziness, and you're one of those guys, so that's what kind of glued me to you on Twitter. I'm like, all right, this guy likes to cause problems. He's my kind of guy.
Yeah, and we do it, all over the place, and really unwittingly at times. I mean, quite honestly, one of the things that we like to do is send out the Cavs parade photo. Now back to the original Cavs parade for the championship. We like to send that out whenever there's a Trump rally, and we like to say that is a Trump rally. And what that does, and I'm not a very political guy, let me just tell you, on either side, and it ends up trapping folks on both the extreme right and the extreme left. People on the left get upset about it, say, no, that's not really it. And people on the right start publishing it as an actual Trump, as a Trump rally. And it actually contributed to, remember that 10 GOP, the Tennessee GOP that got taken down about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, for posting fake things. Well, that my parade photo that I sent out, which was, you can tell there's Cavs stuff everywhere. It's legitimately just the Cavs parade that I posted. They retweeted it and they were touting it, and that's what got them shut down. So it's always weird with some of our silliness and our anarchy, as you say, kind of breeze over into the real world away from the sports world too.
As a Cleveland sports fan, like, what is your main team in Cleveland? Like with the Indians, the Cavs, the Browns. Like, what's the diehard go-to?
Browns first.
Browns first.
Always been that way. Always been that way. Yeah.
Are you originally from the Cleveland area? Is that how you got connected with it?
All of my family is from Northeast Ohio. I grew up. My formative years were up in Bath, beautiful Bath. I went to
the home of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right down the road. It was freaky. So when all that news broke, that was over the summer, and I was out of town in Chicago visiting some family with my family. We came back into town, and there were just TV trucks lining up and down the street. Some of my classmates actually went out there, and they were selling lemonade and made a killing. That's a bad pun. I don't mean that as a pun, but actually made a lot of money that particular summer just selling lemonade to all the TV and news crews.
I mean, they were murdering it.
Very close to my house. I lived on Ranchwood Spur there in Bath, and that was probably a mile away from Dahmer's house, and that was surreal as a kid to come home from family vacation and have that thing blow up in basically your backyard. As a kid, you always see the news and you figure, oh, that's something that happens in a far-off land, and then to realize it's just a mile away, that was wild.
Wow. So as a child, I mean, living in that area, did you go to a lot of Cavs games? Because Richfield was right there.
Because it was right up the road. Yeah, absolutely. I love those teams. You had Lenny Wilkins as your coach. You had Craig Elo, who was unfairly posterized by one Michael Jordan. You had Mark Price, Larry Nance, Brad Daugherty, Hot Rod Williams. I love those teams. Steve Kerr wouldn't even make it off the bench because those teams were so good. Those were fun teams back in the day. We just couldn't get over the hump with Michael Jordan, but went to a bunch of those games and enjoyed the heck out of it.
All right, let's go down the line. We're going to do this. We're going to do top 3 Indians, top 3 Browns, top 3 Cavs.
Ooh, wow, okay. All right, you want to do top 3 Indians first? My favorites?
Sure.
You know where we're going with? Oh, geez. Let's see. Top 3 indies. I've number one. I've always been a huge Jim Thome guy. Always been a huge Jim Thome guy. I know the way he left, a lot of people dog him for going for money or whatever else, but I've always been a huge Jim Thome guy. He's my number one. Number two is going to catch a lot of people by surprise. That would be one Joey Albert Bell. He was just such a badass, man. And he, with that hip problem, that just totally cut short his career. But he was the most feared guy in that entire lineup back then. And and for those who don't know, this is a lineup that had Manny Ramirez, that had Jim Thome.
And they were batting 6th and 7th.
Yeah, and you had Sandy Alomar. I mean, you had Kenny Lofton. You had guys up and down that roster, and Albert Bell would just strike fear into guys like none other. So that would be my number two. Number three, I'll go with Omar. I love Omar.
Oh, wow.
Omar was, he hung in there. When everybody else had left and we were rebuilding, there was Omar who was still back there. So Omar Vizquel, number three. Defensive gem. So who'd you have next? The Cavs?
Let's go Cavs.
Okay, I'm going to have to go LeBron, number one. For obvious reasons. He brought us a championship. Number two is Mark Price. I loved Mark Price as a kid. That's a guy, I tell you what, if it wasn't for the damn knee injuries, he really would have done something. But he's another one who, the what-ifs with his career. And then number three, I'm going to go with the elder Larry Nance, not Larry Nance Jr. I'm going to go with the elder Larry Nance. I always thought he was the coolest, man. He could dunk. He won a dunk contest back in the day. Now, he wasn't playing for us at the time. He was playing for the Suns. But he was just the coolest dude. And he also didn't live too far from me when I lived in Bath. And he had his hot rod out front of his place. And I remember that distinctly as a kid. So,
well, Larry Nance Jr. went to Revere.
Yeah, he did. Yes, he absolutely did. So, some connections there, but I loved those Cavs teams back then.
They were amazing.
They really were.
We got to close it out with your favorite team, the Cleveland Browns.
The Cleveland Browns, number one, you already touched on him, Bernie Kosar. For all the reasons that I've said, man, back in the 80s into the 90s, he was just my guy. I had friends who were like big Broncos fans, which was rough back then, obviously, and they would tell me about John Elway. I had friends who tell me about Dan Marino. Of course, Bengals fans tell me about Boomer Esiason. And, man, Bernie was my guy, flaws and all. He was my guy. He was such a cerebral quarterback because physically he didn't have all the tools, but mentally he knew the game better than anyone else. And I still swear, if his voice was any better, I think he would be doing national broadcasts because his knowledge of the game is just so good.
He literally is. He's the Rocky Balboa of football. He really is.
Oh, I like that analogy. So true.
Yeah.
So true. Number two, let's see. I'm going to go with another unheralded guy. Well, I'm going to give you two unheralded guys for 2 and 3. I'm going to go back a ways. Once again, I love this guy too. Also a career. I think this guy didn't even like football that well, and that was the problem. But he was such a talent, and that was Michael Dean Perry.
Ooh.
And not many people know him. He was William the Refrigerator Perry's brother. Played defensive end. He was the dean of defense, we called him, the sack man. They had an MDP in Cleveland, and that was a McDonald's like Big Mac that they named after Michael Dean Perry. And he just happened to hit the scene just as I was really falling in love with the Cleveland Browns. So I always loved the sack man, loved Michael Dean Perry. And then finally, my last one, I'm going to go with another unheralded favorite, and that's Brian Brennan. Brian Brennan on those teams with the Browns back in the day, man, he would be the guy, third down, even fourth down. If you needed a big catch, he was the guy. I put him in here tied with Ozzie Newsome. Ozzie went to Baltimore and obviously became their GM, so that kind of took him from the 3 spot to the 4 spot. But Brian Brennan was something special, and if it wasn't for the Broncos, he would have had the Broncos comeback. He would have had one of the most unbelievable one of the most memorable catches ever when he ran it in. I believe it was the drive year when he gave us the lead in that game. So Brian Brennan is number 3 for me.
Chris McNeil at reflog_12 on Twitter. This has been a
_18.
18. I'm sorry, I messed that up.
There's 18 holes in golf. Reflog is just golfer backwards. So
that's okay. There you go.
There you go.
Little knowledge right there. You were a guy who you just get in people's lives.
Yeah, I'm kind of annoying at times, you know. Some would call me a troll. I wear it like a badge of honor, but you know, it's all fun. It's all about sports, right? Sports, it's all about rivalries. It's all about conflict, and that's kind of where social media is, and that's where I guess I reside.
Before I let you go, can you explain the profile photo with the cigar and the mustache and the hat?
Oh, yeah. So you could Google Tiger Woods cigar guy, and this is from the Ryder Cup from several years ago. There is a fantastic photo online of this, and someday, I've always said, when I get an office that's worth something, I'm going to have this framed and have it just blown up right behind me. And it's a photo of Tiger Woods hitting the ball directly at the camera. And all you see is the ball right there in front, and then behind it you have Tiger Woods, his caddy Steve Williams, and then the entire gallery just looking at this, focused on the ball and focused at the camera. And then you look back to the right and you see this figure, and that is the cigar guy that I've got as my AV. And he just pops out of it, and you'd swear it was photoshopped into there. But there's this guy, he's a huge Miguel Jimenez fan who played for the Euros, and he dressed up as Miguel Jimenez for the day, and he was in the gallery, and he's just immortalized in this picture. So when I got on Twitter, I had to go with that as my Twitter AV, and he's just magical. He's a foreign guy. I've tried to reach out to him. He lives over there in Britain. I think he's a stockbroker or something like that, and we just haven't been able to hook up. But his photo is just legendary. So Google that, Tiger Woods cigar guy.
Well, there it is. You can follow him on Twitter at reflog_18. And
there you go.
Chris, what else? Anything else, Chris? Do you have anything else you want to plug? Any more parades?
No. The next parade we're going to have is a championship parade right down East 9th in Cleveland. I'll tell you what, with Baker Mayfield at the helm, my friend.
Thank you so much for doing the podcast.
Chad, it was a blast. Thanks, man.
That's a wrap.